I stood at a lovely Airbnb in Iowa for my little brother's graduation. He didn't know I was going to make it, so we threw a surprise party at the Airbnb. While we were setting up, my other brother and I went down to the basement to get an extra table. The second we got down there, we looked at each other and said, "Yep, it's scary here." We searched for the table. The longer I spent in the basement, the greater the feeling of dread grew in me. We found the extra table and headed back upstairs, joking about how creepy a seemingly normal basement was. My whole family got together, and the family started while we were celebrating. My girlfriend decided she'd run the downstairs washer. She was going to go down alone when she came back and asked me to go with her since it was creepy again. I went down and rushed to leave. The basement was now officially scary to me. The party continued and we had a wonderful time. As the night started to settle, people got in their Ubers back to their hotels, and now it was just me and my girlfriend unwinding after an afternoon of eating and drinking. We were relaxing when the laundry buzzer went off. I looked at her and she said she didn't pick up the load from earlier. I thought it was strange that it hadn't beeped hours ago. We headed down to the basement again. She stopped at the stairs to the basement and asked me to go first. As I was going down, the buzzer on the washer went off again, scaring us. We both jumped. I hurried down, grabbed the laundry, and headed upstairs to let it air dry. As we finished, I could tell she was still nervous, so we decided to go through the house and lock all the windows and doors. This is standard when we visit an Airbnb. We never miss this step. My girlfriend stays beside me this whole time. We finally have one last door, the door to the back garden right outside the kitchen, and at the top of the basement. I go and lock the door, ignoring the sense of dread I felt with my back turned to the basement. I should mention this was an oldish house, so the stairs were steep, and the bedroom where we slept was probably originally an attic. To turn on the lights upstairs, you had to flip a switch at the bottom of the stairs. As we made our way in the dimly lit house to the light switch, I think our sense of tiredness overcame the dread we had. I flipped on the switch and headed for the stairs. Just as I did, I heard a loud banging sound, like the sound of pots or something metallic clanging. It was a fast tone. My girlfriend's face was full of fear, and I'm sure mine was too. I began to go to the kitchen where there was a knife, but then I heard the whacking again at the top of the stairs. I turned to look against the now illuminated attic and saw a ceiling fan turned on to its max setting and its mounting pole making the sound. I ran upstairs and turned off the fan. My girlfriend was close behind me. We got ready for bed. I headed downstairs to turn off the light switch and went upstairs. I looked outside the window of the attic to check on my car out front. Everything was good. We began to fall asleep. It was a restless night, hot and stuffy. I had dreams of seeing a shadowy figure out on the lawn. I woke up the next morning tired. I made my way down to the kitchen to brew some coffee. As I was turning around, I looked at the staircase to the basement. Something was wrong, and I don't know why, but I was drawn to the basement again. I looked down the stairs and walked down. I looked around and saw nothing. I headed upstairs. We had breakfast, packed our bags, and got ready to go. As we were doing one last sweep, I checked the kitchen one more time to make sure everything was in good shape. Just as I was about to say, "All good, let's go," that damned laundry machine buzzed. Both I and my girlfriend were just like, "Nope," and proceeded to get the __ out. As we were leaving in a rush, I grabbed the bags and told my girlfriend to start the car. As I was, the fan upstairs turned on again and began making the whacking noise I've never bolted so fast out of a house. When I got to the car, my girlfriend saw the look of panic on my face. What happened? The fan turned on again. I got her out of the driver's seat and we sped off to collect our thoughts at a local diner. I texted the Airbnb host that the washer kept making noises and that I couldn't figure out how to turn off the ceiling fan upstairs. My daughter and I just returned from our trip to Virginia, where we had booked an Airbnb for 6 nights, but we ended up leaving after the 3rd night. Even though the host was friendly and had that warm southern hospitality, but something felt off from the first night. The door code was a long string of 7 numbers that she had memorized, but it was really hard for me to remember, so I ended up locking us out right after we arrived and started unloading all our bags. Frustrated, I had to walk over to the host's house to ask for the code again. The host welcomed us into her home, but things got strange fast. She asked if we wanted something to drink, and while she seemed kind, she then began asking my daughter a lot of random questions, and she even told me to stay silent, saying she only wanted my 8-year-old to answer. Hearing that gave me an uneasy feeling right away, and I felt something was wrong. Later, when we were leaving, she told us to make sure we closed the curtains in the house, even though it's a safe place, but the way she said it made me feel like she was trying to hide something from us. The property was huge and completely private. We were surrounded by open fields, trees, and not a single neighbor in sight. That first night, I kept hearing what sounded like a big bug with a hard shell flying into the mini split in the bedroom over and over, but after traveling for 18 hours, I was too tired to pay attention. The second night was different. While we were in bed, the bathroom connected to the room on the 2nd floor kept making a strange metallic tinkering sound. My daughter luckily slept through the noises, but I kept feeling anxious and uneasy. I tried to convince myself that I was just tired and nervous from traveling. During the 2 days we stayed there, I noticed something strange. The fan I had left on was turned off every time we came back. In the bathroom room there was a small extendable mirror, the only mirror which could also be tilted up and down, but the mirror kept being tilted down to a child's level. At first I thought my daughter was doing it so I would just fix it, but on the last day I tilted it back up and went downstairs to check on her while she was coloring. When I came back upstairs, I was shocked to find the mirror tilted down again. By the 3rd night, all the odd things happening around the house became too much for me to handle. After feeling like we were being kept an eye on for days, my daughter went to take a shower. She told me I am closing the bathroom door so the lightning bugs can't watch me. My daughter is very outgoing and usually wants me close by, and normally she never wants the bathroom door shut when she's showering, so this showed me that she also felt something, even though if she couldn't explain it. We finally went to bed and she fell asleep quickly, but I couldn't sleep again because I felt anxious and started having panic attacks, which I don't usually get. Then the noises began, and they were even worse than the previous 2 nights. The metallic tinkering sound in the bathroom got louder and faster. Then I heard what sounded like someone playing with the things on the bathroom counter, and it sounded like they dropped a glass. Next I heard the closet door across from the bed open. My suitcases were in the way, so I heard the door hit them. These noises went on for hours. Everything inside me told me to run, protect my daughter, and get out as soon as possible. The next morning, when I went into the bathroom, I saw muddy footprints from a child coming out of the shower. I tried to find a reason for the muddy footprints, but I just couldn't. My daughter hadn't played in any mud during our trip, and even if she had, there would have been muddy footprints leading from the front door where we took off our shoes. I felt a wave of panic wash over me as I realized how strange everything had been. I immediately began packing our bags, feeling a strong need to get out of that place for good. I didn't want to stay there any longer not after everything that had happened. After not returning for 2 nights, the host messaged me and offered an extra night for free, but I didn't even reply to her. It took me several days to get over this experience. It was so scary for me and my daughter. This took place a few years ago when my friends and I decided to book an Airbnb to celebrate Christmas. We found a nice one at a good price, but it was in a quiet rural area. What we didn't know was that it was right across from an old graveyard, which made us feel a bit uneasy. After a long and tiring drive, we finally arrived, unpacked all our bags, and took a moment to relax. The house was nice with wooden floors and big windows that let in plenty of light. After settling in, we decided to explore the area. There were a few houses down the road, but most of the land around us was empty. A large field with tall dry grass surrounded the area. Then we saw the great yard, but we didn't go inside. A couple of days later, we were in the kitchen after dinner just relaxing. It was already dark and the time was around 10:30 when one of my friends suggested that we explore the graveyard since we hadn't gone inside yet. We talked about it for a while, and 2 of my friends decided to stay at the house that left 3 of us to go exploring. We found a flashlight, put on our jackets, and crossed the street. As we walked into the graveyard, we could hear the sound of dry leaves under our feet. We spent some time walking between the graves, reading the names into the stone. The friend with the flashlight walked ahead, leaving the 2 of us in complete darkness. Now the girl who stayed with me started to panic and quickly ran toward the friend with the light. And in her rush, she didn't notice the grave in front of her, and accidentally tripped over it. Stumbling forward as she was trying to steady herself, she stepped again without looking and tripped over the same tombstone, falling even harder. This time her hands hit the ground and she let out a nervous laugh. Still shaken from the scare, she was fine. Thankfully nothing unusual happened at the graveyard, so we felt a little let down. Later we went to bed and I was sharing a bed with the girl who had tripped earlier. Around 2 a.m. she suddenly shook me awake, looking really scared. She whispered that she had heard knocking on the window right beside our bed. The room was dark and the only sound we could hear was the wind outside. We stayed quiet for a few minutes, but we didn't hear anything. I lay back down, but as soon as I did, I heard knocking on the wall. It wasn't loud, but clear enough to make us both freeze in fear. By this point, we were really scared. We told ourselves that if we heard it again, we would wake up our friends. We stayed as quiet as possible, staring at the ceiling and listening. After a few long minutes, we suddenly heard 2 sharp knocks on the bed frame right beside us. Our hearts were racing, and without thinking, we jumped out of bed and rushed to wake our friends. They listened to us, but didn't believe anything strange was happening, and even now we still don't know what caused those knocks, and it still gives us chills whenever we think about it.